Please be seated, says the President.
អង្គជំនុំជម្រះប្រកាស
The court is now back in session. The floor is now again given to the prosecution to put questions to the witness. You may proceed.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon, different parties, and good afternoon, witness. This morning, questions were put to you on the period prior to the fall of Phnom Penh. This afternoon and tomorrow, we will focus on the period between April 1975 and January 1979. The period that is of interest to you. May I request you, if possible, to make an effort to place yourself in that particular context and to try to recall the events of that period. And I thank you in advance for that. My questions will focus on the administrative structure with regard to communication, the role of the accused, and the different policies. Witness, my first question is as follows. Where did you work after the 17th of April 1975 upon your arrival in Phnom Penh?
Response. After 1975, I arrived in Phnom Penh. I did the cleaning at the Ministry of Defense, which is currently the Prime Minister Council's office.
Combien de temps après le 17 avril 1975 vous êtes arrivé à Phnom Penh?
When was that? After the 17th of April 1975, that is after you arrived in Phnom Penh.
Response. It was about 1 month or less than 1 month when I arrived in Phnom Penh after that date.
Vous dites que vous avez travaillé au nettoyage du ministère.
You stated that you worked as a cleaner in the Ministry of Defense. Do you know whether there was another ministry on the same premises?
Response. The Ministry of Defense is currently the Foreign Affairs Ministry.
Je voudrais bien comprendre, vous avez travaillé.
I would like you to specifically clarify this point. Did you work for the Ministry of Defense or for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. I did the cleaning at the Ministers, the Council of Ministers office, which was at the time the Foreign Affairs Ministry. That is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs during the 1975 period.
D'accord, merci beaucoup.
Very well, thank you very much. Who decided at the time to appoint you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. It was Pong.
Et une fois que vous avez fini de nettoyer,
when you had finished cleaning the premises, what position did you hold in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? After you stopped being a cleaner, what position did you hold in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
I did not have any position. When I did the cleaning, I was an ordinary combatant.
d'accord, mais après avoir fini le nettoyage,
Question. Very well. But after your job as a cleaner ended and you became a combatant, when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs became operational, what function did you hold?
Response. I hate to mix the responsibilities. There was no clear sole responsibilities that I did at the time. As I recall, Ieng Sari, upon his return from abroad, assigned me to be in charge of the psychological factor of the people there.
je vais revenir à vos fonctions.
Question. I will return to your functions later. When Ieng Sari returned to Phnom Penh, what position did he himself hold? That is, upon his return.
Response. Upon his return, I saw him making contact and communication with foreigners. So, from my perspective, he was working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Et quelle fonction?
Question. And what was his position in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sir?
Response. I think he was a Deputy Prime Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs.
Est-ce que dès qu'il est rentré,
Question. Did he hold that position immediately upon his return to Phnom Penh?
Response. No. Only upon the ministry was completely cleaned. It means it took 2 to 3 months before the ministry was operational. However, it was not fully organized at the time.
ce matin,
Question. This morning you mentioned Mr. Charin Chak, so I believe that you know him. Do you know what position Charin Chak held at the time? That is, immediately before the fall of Phnom Penh and immediately after Phnom Penh was captured.
Response. I was not sure regarding this matter. It was the technical aspect of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was only working in regards to the livelihood of the people who worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
est-ce que le bureau des affaires
Question. Was the office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs always located at the same place from the very beginning, or it was moved elsewhere thereafter?
pas eu de traduction, Monsieur le Président.
I did not hear any interpretation, Mr. President.
President, could you please repeat the question? Let me adhere to the procedure we practiced this morning. Between both the question and answer sessions, please make a pause. And for the witness, you please observe the red light on the microphone before you start speaking.
Oui, je repose la question. Est-ce que le ministère...
Let me ask the question again then. Was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs always located at the same place from 1975 to 1979, or it was moved to other premises?
Response: there was no relocation of the ministry.
Merci. Donc,
Thank you. Question. You told me that Ieng Sary was Vice Prime Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs. Do you know whether he was a member of the party's Central Committee?
Response: I was not sure on his membership. I only heard about his membership.
est-ce que M. Ieng Sary faisait-il partie...
Was Mr. Ieng Sary a member of the Standing Committee, to your knowledge?
Response: as I was not in the committee, I did not know.
Merci.
Question? Thank you. Witness, I believe I showed you this morning document E3/446, which is also document D369/36. And may I request the chamber to allow me to have placed on the screen the response or answer number 37 in this document.
អរគុណអនុញ្ញាតហើយមន្ត្រីរដ្ឋបាលតុលាការពិនិត្យមើល
President, court officer, can you check the document and open it through the page for the witness so that he can be questioned by the prosecution?
Donc, à la réponse 37...
Now, in answer to question number 37, you said, no, Khe Sampan was not a member of the Standing Committee. There were only a few members of the Standing Committee, namely Pol Pot, Nonchia, Ieng Sary, and Tamok. Now, my question is as follows. At the time, in 2010, you told the investigators that Ieng Sary was a member of the Standing Committee, and today you are no longer very sure of that. Does this passage refresh your memory, witness?
But
Response: I said that I did not attend the meeting, so I was not sure. Regarding the members of the Standing Committee, I only heard from other people. And during my trip with them, I learned that Ieng Sary was the Deputy Prime Minister in charge of the Foreign Affairs, but I myself was not told of his membership.
Sous le régime du Cambodge,
Question. Under the Democratic Kampuchea regime, generally speaking, in the different governing bodies, were the individuals who are members of such bodies capable of taking decisions alone, or decisions were taken collectively?
Response, I am not sure on this point. However, in principle, the decision was made collectively.
est-ce que Pol Pot, par exemple,
Question. For instance, was Pol Pot capable of taking decisions alone, be it in the Standing Committee or in the Central Committee?
President, witness, can you pause? We will now hear the objection by the Defense Counsel. Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
First of all, it is leading in nature. There's a lack of foundation. He needs to establish that the gentleman was a member of or participated in standing committee meetings or central committee meetings, or that somehow he has some first-hand knowledge before he can answer that question. So the question assumes facts which are not in evidence from this witness. If a foundation can be laid because of his association with his uncle, maybe his uncle told him, maybe he participated, maybe he came into contact with something other than simply asking the witness to speculate. Those are the grounds of my objection, Your Honor.
Monsieur le Président, il y a un fondement.
Mr. President, I have laid a foundation to this question because questions have been put to the witness on this subject before the co-investigating judges. I think this question is well-founded. He has indeed stated that Pol Pot was a member of the Standing Committee.
Mr. President, if I may be heard, obviously the gentleman doesn't understand the basis or the thrust of my objection. Irrespective of what is in the statements that were taken by the investigative judge, that is not a foundation. The foundation has to be laid here because we are dealing, after all, at least in this courtroom, with a principle of orality. If we're going to suggest that everything, the foundation has been laid in the documents, then why simply go through the exercise of asking questions? Why not just suggest to the gentleman to look at the documents, verify that these are the documents, and then we can all go home? Under the principle of orality, a foundation has to be made here. And based on the foundation, then it can be put to him. That's the way I understand the principle of orality, and I believe that's exactly what we've been doing since the beginning of this trial. And I'm not suggesting that the statements cannot come in. The statements can come in, but you cannot say something was said to the investigative judges, as was just indicated, as a response to my objection, and therefore what's in some report is a foundation, and I can just skip through it. That's the thrust of my objection.
President, the National Prosecutor, do you have any reply to the objection raised by the Defense Counsel for Ieng Sary?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Let me state again that the witness said that, to his knowledge, Pol Pot was a member of the Standing Committee, and he also says that the principle whereby decisions were taken in organs of democratic Kampuchea was collective. Hence, my question, the more so as Pol Pot is his uncle, my question is whether Pol Pot could take decisions alone. I think there is a clear link between what the witness said and my question.
President, the objection raised by the Defense Counsel, Michael Canavas, that is for Ieng Sari, to the last question by the prosecution is denied. The Chamber will now hear the response by the witness to the question last asked by the prosecution. President, it seems that the witness probably forgets the question asked by the prosecution. Could the prosecution repeat the last question so it can be answered by the witness?
Bien sûr, Monsieur le Président.
Of course, Mr. President. Witness, my question was as follows. Could Pol Pot take decisions alone in the Central Committee or the Standing Committee of the party?
Response. This is the internal matter of the Standing or the Central Committee, and I did not know the details of their internal arrangement.
Vous avez tout à l'heure parlé du fait que Nunchia...
A while ago, you also stated that Nunchia was a member of the Standing Committee. What was his exact role in the party?
Response. I do not know his exact role.
Monsieur le Président.
Prosecution. Mr. President, I would like to show the witness another document. It is the transcript of an interview by the witness, the interview of the witness, beg your pardon, and the reference is E3/413, and the other reference is D230.3/2, and it is the transcript of the interview of July 2009 before the co-investigating judges. May I request that page 6 in English, 0036-1012, and in French, the ERN is 05 455, and I will give you the ERN for the Khmer version shortly, and I'm seeking your leave to have this document screened.
President, yes, you may proceed, and the documents can be shown on the screen. Court officer, could you make the arrangement and to have the document delivered for the examination of the witness?
Alors, le numéro IRN en Khmer.
The ERN in Khmer is 0035 75 30.
0035
0035 75 30.
Bon, c'est une longue question qui avait été posée au témoin.
The question put to the witness was a very long one regarding Kiet Chun and Chun Prasit. And in his answer, this is what the witness said. He's referring to an incident with Huyun. This means that Pol Pot could not take decisions alone. To the best of my knowledge, it was Pol Pot who was in charge of policy, and Brother Nunchia was in charge of administrative organization. There may be a problem of translation here because the English version doesn't talk of administrative organization or Nunchia, but of the appointment of cadres. Mr. Witness, do you confirm that Nunchia was in charge of the appointment of cadres of the party?
Response. I am not clear regarding this matter.
Est-ce que vous confirmez ce que vous avez dit?
Question. Do you stand by what you stated or you deny what you stated?
Response. I do not deny my statement.
Mais est-ce que vous la confirmez?
Question. But do you confirm it?
Yes, I do.
Si
If Nunchia was responsible for appointing cadres in the party, was he also responsible for appointing those who were in charge of security?
The President. Witness, please wait. The chamber will now hear the objection by the defense counsel for Nunchia. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The witness only said that he confirmed his statement. No more, no less. He did not say today that my client was in charge of appointing people for or in the party.
The President. which is the International Court Prosecutor, you may again ask the last question to the witness.
Witness. The question is, since you confirmed your declaration about the appointment of these cadres, was Nuon Chea also responsible for appointing those cadres who were responsible for security?
Response. I knew that Mr. Nuon Chea was responsible for the appointments, but I did not know what kind of appointments that was.
Merci.
Thank you. Did you often see Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary, Khieu Samphan, Son Sen, and other leaders meeting together between April 1975 and January 79?
Response. I saw they held meetings, but I did not know what was discussed during the meeting.
Où ces réunions se déroulaient?
Where were the meetings held, please?
My apology, between which year to which year are you talking about?
Oui, c'est toujours la même période.
Same period, April 75 to January 79. Can you tell me where these meetings took place? In which office?
The President. Once again, there may be a confusion between the periods. As I heard from my channel, it is between the January 1979 to 1975, so it's the reverse period. Here, are we talking about events between 1975 to 1979? Can we have the question again, otherwise the witness may not be able to answer the question.
Oui, c'est bien ce que je crois.
I believe that's what I said, April 75 to January 79. Where did these meetings between the various leaders take place?
That was when I was separated from Pol Pot. That was after 1975. He was in a different place, and I remained at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with Mr. Ieng Sary. So I never saw they met at the ministry. And I did not have any knowledge about the meeting at his place.
Witness. This morning you received document D369/39, and if I may, I'd like to refer to response 32 in that document. It's also E3/446. If we can look at response number 32 that you gave the investigators during the investigation, I would be grateful.
The court officer is now instructed to assist the witness so that he could locate the portion where the question is being put to him.
Je vais lire la question qui...
Let me read the question that you were asked. 32. Did you see Mr. Kusampan, Yang Sari and Nunchia meeting together? Answer. Yes. They were accustomed to meeting. When they had confidential meetings, it took place in K1 by the riverside. They didn't meet in the foreign ministry. So, witness, can you now remember those meetings, and can you remember the place that was called K1?
Response. I knew about K1 office because I went there once in a while. However, I did see there was a meeting there. It was the place where they stayed together, all the leaders. And when I went there, once in a while I saw them meeting, but I did not know what the meeting was about.
Est-ce que, monsieur le témoin, dans le cadre de vos fonctions,
Witness, as part of your duties, even if you weren't actually a member, did you have any opportunities to attend one or several meetings of the Central Committee?
Are you talking about Mr. Ieng Sari? Which individual are you talking about?
je voulais parler...
No, I was talking about you. Were you able to join those who attended meetings of the Central Committee of the party?
I never attended the meetings. As an ordinary combatant, I never did.
Pourquoi
Why, every now and then, did you go to K1? What was your business in K1? Tell us about that.
I went to K1 office because my wife was a cook there.
Comment s'appelait votre épouse?
What was your wife's name, please?
Chu Chain.
Comment s'appelait l'unité dans laquelle elle travaillait?
And what was the name of the unit you worked in?
It was called K1.
Merci.
Thank you. What was Kusampan's role in the party between 1975 and 1979? Well, he may have had several roles. Perhaps you could elucidate that for us.
Response. I accept what has been mentioned in these documents, but on the basis of my uncertainty.
Que voulez-vous dire?
Can you just answer the question about what Kyo Sampan's role was in the Communist Party of Cambodia between 75 and 79, or if he had played several roles and if he had several titles?
I did not follow that issues closely. I only knew about myself, importantly.
Est-ce qu'il y aurait eu un lien? Non, d'abord, est-ce que vous connaissez le bureau 870?
Witness, are you aware of Office 870?
I knew Office 870. But there was no particular location for this office. This office was on the move.
Qui étaient les
Which senior officials ran Office 870, which, as you say, was on the move?
The senior cadres was the Central Committee. They were the senior cadres.
Can you draw some kind of link between Kyo Sampan and Office 870, or was there no connection whatsoever between the two?
There were some relationships.
Pouvez-vous nous expliquer?
Perhaps you could explain what the link was between Kyo Sampan and Office 870.
It is a long history because we have the office itself changed its locations several times, and I do not recall whether there were meetings or where the meetings were held. It was now more than 30 years ago.
Je voudrais en revenir toujours au même document.
Perhaps I could come back to the same document that we have before us, which is D 369/36. Response 39 that you gave the investigators. Perhaps it would be helpful if we just read this out, and then you could tell us if you can confirm what you said. And of course we would like to have this on the screen if possible.
La question qui vous était posée était
Question that you were asked was, what role did Mr. Kyo Sampan have in Office 870? And in answer 39, you said, so far as I know, he was a member of the party centre. However, I have no idea when exactly he became a member of the Standing Committee. He was in charge of the front affairs and more particularly collecting forces. Merely on seeing him coming to work, I assumed that Mr. Kyo Sampan was the head of Office 870, responsible for logistics, as the successor of Sir Vazi Elias Dun, who had been arrested earlier, And then right at the end of that same response, you say that eventually, as time passed, he became president of the state presidium, and then he became attached to the central office of the party. Does that help your memory a little, Mr. Witness? And could you now tell us a little bit more about the role of Kyo Sampan in Office 870, please, and in the party?
I accept the answers in this document. I agree with this answer. But for me to describe or elaborate further, I cannot recall. Because I drew a conclusion when I answered the question during that time, and I now even forget what I said during that time.
Est-ce que vous pourriez nous dire,
Can you tell us if you know what particular period Servazi alias Dun was arrested and why?
I do not know.
Alors concrètement,
So, coming down to specifics, did you see Kyo Sampan coming sometimes to the office of the Foreign Ministry?
It seems that he came there sometimes and he talked about the air tickets.
Was that his sole interest? Or did he have perhaps other reasons as well for coming?
I was not interested in anything else. It was only about the technical issues when we went to abroad. It was not a meeting.
When he came to B1, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs rather, was that while Yen Sari was there, or did he sometimes come when he wasn't there?
I could not remember that.
je voudrais maintenant en venir à la structure interne.
I'd like to look at the internal structure of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and perhaps in order to see things a little bit more clearly, I'd like to come back to what your duties were within the ministry. So once this Ministry of Foreign Affairs was up and running, what duties did you have to fulfill inside it?
I did not know any foreign languages, but the superior appointed me to work at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. I did not really agree with that, however. The superior, especially Ieng Sari, said that I was to assist the work, or his work. To work as the General Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was not even aware for sure what that meant. He said the work was to be in charge so that workers or everyone was in agreement. That was the main duty.
How old were you when you became Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? And was that quite a hefty duty?
Probably I was in my late 30s. In my late 30s.
Pardon, la trentaine ou
Late 30s or just in your 30s? Please clarify.
Well, I was born, and please help me with the calculation. I was born in 1947.
Donc si vous êtes né en 1947,
Well, if you were born in 1947, then you would have been about 28. But just to shed light on this point, in all of the records of interviews, the date of birth we have is the 9th of December 1951. Well, is that wrong? Were you in fact born in 1947?
I did not hear the translation. I did not hear the translation.
oui, je vais répéter la question.
All right, let me repeat. If you were born in 1947, then in 1975 you were more or less 28. But I just wanted to ask you to clarify this for us, because in the 5 records of questionings from the investigators in Malay, it says that your date of birth is 1951. So can you just let us know if you were born in 1947 or 1951?
About my biography, when I joined the army, I lowered my age. My actual age is that I was born in 1947.
D'accord.
Very good. Just now you said you were appointed Secretary General, and I believe you told us that you were appointed by Ieng Sary, who asked you to give him some help. Now that was a certain demonstration of trust, and in the subsequent 3 years you spent in the ministry, did you enjoy the same level of trust from Ieng Sary in your direction?
Yes, it could probably be so.
Je voudrais,
Before we break, I would like to ask a rather lengthier question, and it's about the structure of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. When you were Secretary General, please, can you explain to us what the different bodies, cells or departments were in that ministry, and perhaps to make things easier, if you could start with the people at the top, the committee members, and then move downwards towards departments and sections and cells. Thank you.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs consisted of two major parts. One was concerning the foreign affairs, and that section includes those intellectuals who knew foreign languages. The second section concerns the economics, the livelihood of the ministry, and the psychological issues of the staff. And this latter issue dealt with the production issues, and I was responsible for this latter issue. And as for the foreign affairs section concerning the intellectuals, was not under my control, so I cannot describe it. I was only responsible for the production of agriculture or growing plants, and to deal with psychological issues of the staff who work at the ministry.
D'accord.
Thank you. Let's try and distinguish between the office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs itself, which you have described to us, and the different component parts that were dependent upon the ministry but which were outside the compound of the office. So starting with the office itself, can you let us know if there was some kind of committee that was in charge of B1?
The committee responsible for B1, concerning that place, I was responsible for the production. Even though I held the position of the Secretary General, but I was responsible for the production. Others was responsible for by Mr. Evidentiary.
ការដាំដុះគឺដាំនៅក្រោយនោះដីទនេនោះដាំដុះនៅទៅនោះផង
The plantations were done there as well as at the logistics place.
Merci, mais
Thank you very much. But you haven't really told us if there was a committee, and if there was a committee, who was a member of it?
កម្មាធិការ
There was a committee. I did not know a lot about the section under Mr. Evidentiary, and as for my section, we had I myself and Jim.
ពីណាទៀតទេខ្ញុំភ្លេចហើយបាទ
But I could not recall others. Together we have three of us. It was probably Sosai, Miss Sosai, but I'm not sure, I'm sorry.
pourriez-vous tout de même si vous n'étiez pas responsable, évidemment,
Even if you were not a member of the intellectual section of the ministry, can you at least tell us who worked in the political bureau among the intellectuals who were under Evidentiary? Can you tell us their names and their functions, if you do know them?
ទេ
Response. There were various sections under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I cannot know the details of those technical aspects. There were those who were in charge of the Asian region, of the European region, for instance. As I did not like this type of work, so I did not pay much attention to it. I saw them holding meetings with this committee or that committee, with Kiet Chon, for instance. Or Asung Si Kun, or So Sai, for instance. So I cannot count all those names for you. I cannot describe in details regarding the technical aspect of the ministry.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I think it is already more than 2:30 p.m., Mr. President. If you don't mind, perhaps we should take our break now. Thank you.
We actually take a break at 2:40 p.m.
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Alors, avant de revenir peut-être plus précisément aux différentes
Question. Before we talk about the specific cellules and departments you are responsible for, regarding all units that were outside of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs itself, that is outside B1, can you describe those units to us and tell us which ones outside of B1 were under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? A while ago you talked about the production unit and units dealing with other similar activities.
Response. There were no other departments outside the ministry. There were only various sections within the ministry compound. That is for the internal affairs and the foreign affairs, and the sections were within the ministry. And of course, there were those sections dealing with the cleaning of the ministry and cleaning of the guest houses. And as for the production unit, it was held and done behind the ministry. There were those who worked on the plantation, for instance, or the vegetation, and their lifestyle or the way they live was similar to that of the peasants. So it was like half modern, half agrarian.
Merci. Vous avez
Question. Thank you. You talked of host houses. Did they have any names? And where were they situated?
Response. If we saw some nice houses, then those houses would be cleaned first. If they were likely the location for the guests to stay, then we would clean those houses first. For instance, at K1, which was a former resident, so I can only recall these main places. And for houses number 2, that would be at the Le Hotel near the Wat Phnom, and then those big places would be numbered 2, 3, 4 accordingly.
Parce qu'il y avait aussi des maisons d'hôtes en province.
Were there other guest houses in the provinces apart from those in Phnom Penh?
Response. As for guest houses in the province, we would contact those at the province to clean the houses in receipt of the guest. For example, as for the Cape area, then some of my people would go there and clean those houses for guests.
Quant aux unités de production, Monsieur le témoin,
Regarding the production units, witness, how were they called and where were they located? I mean, those that were independent of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Response. Previously, it was located behind the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and later on it was moved to house number 1 near the riverfront, as there was quite a big backyard, so we could make some plantation there. And later on, in 1977, it was relocated to Trang Cham Rai. That was around that year, either 1977 or 78. So we did both the farming and the rice farming.
est-ce que vous avez déjà entendu parler?
Question. Did you ever hear of Bang Trabek? Was Bang Trabek among production units under the supervision of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. Bang Tabai was not under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was under the charge of Mr. Pong.
Je reviendrai là-dessus, mais
Question. I will return to that. So, are you telling us today that Bang Trabek was never under the responsibility of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. I said in the past it was not under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it became part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in around 1973 or 74. President, witness, could you be confused in regards to the year 73 or 74? Could you try to recall? President, please note the red light on the microphone. Response. 75 and 76, it was under the 304 zone, and only in 77 when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs took charge of that area. President, the time is appropriate for the afternoon break. We will have a 20 minutes break until 3 p.m. and we shall resume after that. Court officer, could you make an arrangement for the witness during the break for the refreshment and have him back here in the courtroom by 3 p.m. The court is now adjourned. All right, says the greffier.